My dear Bagginses and Buffins.
Okay, so let's jump on to the next one here. We've got so this is where Payne and McKay mentioned masturbating in the script. At least that's what the translation said. If this is a sample of their script writing, we're all in for more controversy. So I don't get what happened here. So this is the trailer that was in a different language, and it wasn't even a trailer. It was
Oh, this was the one with like the voice. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I don't really know what
I didn't know that.
what they're
That's
saying
news.
here. I'm not really sure what Odin is saying. I don't know if that's true. I can't really comment on it. If it is in the script, it's going to be really strange. There better be some context. We'll have to see. And Odin
I
has
can't think
another
of.
one.
You're right. I can't think of if that's true. I can't think of a context
Because
where
there's not even
where I would want that to fit.
no, like it's not even in. Even if you look at Game of Thrones to say, hey, look, they had some sex scenes. I don't think they ever just say masturbation in that show. I could be wrong, but I don't think they do.
The word doesn't. It's referred to, but the word I don't think comes
Right,
up.
exactly. I don't think the word. I don't think it should be spoken. You
Yeah.
would allude to it.
They yeah, because I remember Tyrion talking about uh doing that into his sister's food when he was a
Oh, that's
kid
right. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah,
or some.
you wouldn't just outright say it like that. I don't think it wouldn't be in keeping with Tolkien's writing anyway. Odin has another follow up to Samwise Gamgee actor Sean Astin reacting to Lord of the Rings. So he says Samwise or Sean Astin gets it wrong. Amazon did fork out $1 billion just to screw it up. They have to produce disasters where they actually have to pay their taxes instead of deferring debts from previous years. That's a crazy conspiracy theory that I've ever seen. It's possible. There's like a 0.1% chance that is true. I don't think they want to deliberately screw this one up. They have plenty of other stuff they could screw up or like spend money on if they really wanted to. Why would you do it for Lord of the Rings? I just don't see that. So that's just my two thoughts on that one. Yeah, anything to add to that one?
No.
No. Okay, next one. Here we go. We got Muvu or Muvo. I, for one, want it to fail, and they lose every cent they spend. The look is not the big issue. They have messed big time with the source material, and what they are presenting is foreign to the world we know as Middle Earth. Garbage. Okay. Yeah, we've talked a little bit about this. The fact that they don't have the explicit rights to the Silmarillion. They don't have the explicit rights to a lot of the other extended works of Tolkien that he didn't finish before he died. They also don't have the rights to Peter Jackson's work visually. Not even like it's not even like they have this don't have the rights to the script and can't use the same lines. They don't even have the visual rights, so they can't even reuse the same props. So, with all that being said, there is a lot of there's a lot of barriers to overcome.
Yeah. There's causes for concern.
There are causes for concern. I don't want to downplay that. There like people who want this to be a perfect segue into the other visual representations of Tolkien's work. There might be some issues there. But that being said, there is now this is also a conspiracy theory of mine. There is thoughts that they might have the rights to a new book coming out. It will be released to the public at the beginning of November, November, right after the first season is wrapped up, and that book will be it's a collection of all of the written works of Tolkien relating to the exact time period that this show will be taking place. So the thought is, while they may not have the entire Silmarillion to bring
which focuses on the first age.
Right. They may have access to this particular book and select writings from both the Silmarillion and other works of Tolkien that they can pick and choose from that are directly in reference to the Second Age. Now, we've still talked about some of the other issues they have, like the dwarves, their lore being kind of screwed up. as well as some of Galadriel's true adventures and true exploits, because there's a lot of stuff she does here that it doesn't seem to fit within any sort of timeline relative to other events. And so there's a lot of stuff that might not truly fit word for word, but they are going to try to condense a lot of time down into this show. And so we might have to kind of bend the timeline. Unfortunately, for some, I will kind of want to. I'm still willing to give it a shot, but they might be bending the timeline a little bit. My hope is or Movo is that they are not presenting something foreign to us that we know in Middle Earth. My hope is that they're presenting something that is, while it's not going to be visually the exact same, I want to be able to feel like I'm stepping back into Middle Earth. So I am fully aware of the potential dangers that they are facing and how it might not feel the same at all. With that being said, though, I am hopeful, and I still want to wait to see this show before I give it a pass or fail. At least that's my. I'm hesitant to some of these things. I'm more hopeful to some, but I do want to see what they have to offer before we truly start ranking this and rating it. So my hope is that you guys are at least open-minded to the concept that it's okay. And we're going to be there every step of the way. We love the movies, so, if this doesn't live up to it, I will be disappointed, and I'm going to say so on here. So I will be honest with people. I just want to say that. If it is not good, I'm going to be very upset and maybe more critical than I really should be. And hopefully our channel doesn't become that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and Dan B and Muvo got into a bit of a conversation. So we got what do we got here? Okay, so it starts out with Muvo saying, okay, so it's the stuff we just talked about. They decided to make the show about a timeline they didn't have rights to. I kind of already speculated that they might have some of the rights that we don't know about yet. The title is a cash grab. That one could be true. We'll see if they actually do live up to Tolkien standards.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's not even about the props. So this person is weird. They kind of. So, to me, I know it's not only about the props. I just want to say it's never been just about the look. That's one easy way to help ground you within the world that you already know. But I agree, it's not about the props. You could replace all the props in Peter Jackson's films with other ones, and it would still work. It wouldn't maybe not be as good depending on which props you change out and what they look like, but it would still feel awesome. So I agree, it's not just about the props. That the risk is they are making a story that doesn't take place in Middle Earth, and they are shoehorning it in. I completely agree that is the risk, and I think we have not. I don't think we've ever shied away from that fact. I don't know. I think we've been pretty open that we are concerned. We're hopeful, but we are concerned, right?
Yeah.
So Dan B comes in. Well, they have the right to some characters. However, why is it garbage if they are creating fanfic? Okay, so here's a question. So why is it garbage? Because why is it garbage if they are creating fan fiction in Tolkien's world? So that's an interesting concept by Dan B here. What I will say is that, I agree that eventually you may want someone to take over your work, right? And so at that point, is it fan fiction or is it newly established lore? What is it, right? Star Wars is
I
having
mean,
this
could
kind of
could you
existential crisis.
argue? I mean, could you argue like only Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit were published during Tolkien's life?
That's correct.
The rest of it was just notes that he did not publish himself.
That's right.
Who knows if he was satisfied with that work, or maybe he did have that conversation with his son, though. I want you to tune this up and publish it after I'm gone. I don't know. Do you think is
No,
that,
see, well, even if
do
he
we
said
know
that,
anything? Do
I,
we know anything about that, or
I'm not aware of him
the
saying finish my work. I don't believe he ever said that. But what I will say is, even if he did do that, he loved to go back and tinker with his work. This is well established. He's changed many things over the course of The Hobbit and the original book trilogy. And he kept redoing certain parts. He kept changing the character looks and the character names. He did this a lot. And so while he even if he did say go ahead and publish this when I'm gone, who's to say he wouldn't have wanted to tinker with that? And is that fan fiction for him to tinker? Like, so it's a hard question to answer because what is I mean, we can never know what Tolkien thought of any of this. He might have hated the original trilogy for all I know.
yeah,
So it's hard to just focus on would Tolkien have liked it. But what I will say is when you break lore, you are essentially saying you're no longer going to be moving within the established domain of that world, which is
Yeah.
fine. You can break lore, but you have to recognize the consequences and the impact it has moving forward. And I think that's the risk we are all worried about. We've seen it happen in Star Wars, as I mentioned, where they're kind of going through an existential crisis right now. Like, what parts, to the fans, what parts are actually canon and even worth watching is the kind of the question. And what, looking back, some of the more recent TV shows and movies have ruined aspects of the original films and the prequels to some extent. And to me, that is my only worry about the Rings of Power, is if they do something that I can directly see a correlation between what they've
it's a.
done and
I
what is
think
already established.
it's a bigger deal though here because in the context of George Lucas and Disney, George Lucas did tell Disney, "You can do what you like with it. You own it now. I've sold it to you."
That's right.
They were given that authority, whereas yeah, Tolkien didn't really do that.
That's right.
And
Tolkien was actually very private about letting people.
yeah,
I mean, he didn't even let the Beatles do a Lord of the Rings movie, which would have
yeah,
been really interesting to see. So then, yeah, just Movo, just wrapping up real quick, says that what they would prefer is for them to say inspired by J.R.R. Tolkien instead of having it be the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
Yeah. Like have this be literally be a fan fiction.
Yeah.
Like this is not canon.
Yeah. And I can see multiple ways you can even go about that. You can literally have some hobbit telling the story if you're like, obviously there's hobbits in this show, or you can have have this story being told to someone. Anyway, yeah. So all I'm worried about is it wrecking previously established works.
So Disney's, I think the way Disney, because Disney's got a bunch of comics out and they have books out and they have cartoons out and they have TV shows out. And they in some instances they actually contradict themselves. Even now that they've canceled all the Legends books that were out long before Disney bought Star Wars. But they've kind of said if there's a contradiction, this takes precedent. You know what I mean? Like if there's a contradiction, the movies take precedent over the live action, over the cartoon, over the comics, over the books. So there's an order of if there's a contradiction, which one's true. That's the way they've kind of done it. But
now, yeah, and obviously here the books are what takes precedent.
So you could just say we're telling the story, but when we get it wrong,
no, see, I don't like that.
Count.
See, I don't like that. I think that's lazy. I think Disney's a lazy company. So I don't like that one bit. I'm not with Movo. I'm more for me, it's about the impact it has on the other works, and I think that's what
It's
Movo's getting at.
it's tricky because there's I could totally see there's gonna be that aspect of fan who would say we shouldn't have even they love the books and we shouldn't have even made the movies. The Peter Jackson movies shouldn't have even been made, and this series shouldn't have been made either. But then there's gonna be the people who just want more content.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be
Now,
yeah, there's gonna be a group of people. I love things the way they are. It's done. Stop making stuff. Don't ruin it.
Yeah.
And then there's gonna be people who love it, who are also just saying just keep making stuff. And I'm glad. I want more of the story to be told, and I'm glad that they're making the show.
yeah. Now, what I will say is that people do want more content until the content bores them, as we've seen with a lot of the stuff coming out of Disney right now, where people are just, it's not as interesting as you would hope it would be, considering that it's part of this larger, the MCU or Star Wars. I really,
Right.
to me, I really don't want to see Lord of the Rings go down that route where this just becomes boring and, whatever. You know what I mean? Like that to me,
You
that's
don't want
horrible
you
to
don't
think about.
you don't want them to do what they're doing with Marvel when they have like a dozen different
Oh,
TV
yeah, no.
shows being released simultaneously.
Which I will point out real quick while we're on this subject, we do have at least 2 other projects coming out, Lord of the Rings.
Right.
So
Right, the Rohirrim.
right now, that being animated, and they do have the rights as far as we know to what they're talking about. So that seems like it can be a direct text to visual adaptation. But we'll see. We'll see as more stuff rolls out. But we are getting into the risk of having this oversaturation of content where literally we're going to have TV show, movie, TV show, movie. Like it's literally going to go TV show in the fall, movie in the spring, and all going to be Lord of the Rings. I really don't want that to just be boring. Like it don't make it unless there's something to make. Right? So that's my worry, is that it falls into that's just a boring concept now. The thing about Lord of the Rings that was so striking to me was that it was a standalone trilogy that was just so good that people begged for more. They then made another trilogy which was not as good. It didn't live up to the original, and I actually think it probably wouldn't have. It probably wouldn't get that much notice if it wasn't attached to the original trilogy. To be honest, that's just my 2 cents. My worry is that's if we go worse than that, if we go worse than The Hobbit, we end up just people not even caring about it. And yes, we'll always have the original trilogy. Yes, you'll always have the books. But with all this media bombarding you with stuff about Lord of the Rings, it's going to be hard not to let that sink in and impact your enjoyment of the originally established works. And that I know that's going to happen with me with Star Wars. I know it. And my worry is it happens with Lord of the Rings. So I don't want this to become like a critique the show to all hell because don't touch, Lord of the Rings. I actually did want more content, but I do worry that they are just making it for content's sake, and that's like, you need to know what you're doing, which we've talked about. The show knows what they're doing. At least they know their end scene. Like, they know everything in between. They've mapped it all out.
This out. Yeah,
they just don't have the rights potentially, but like to some of the stuff we wish they had. But they've mapped out what they want to do. Whether or not it's fan fiction remains to be seen. This was sold to them, so it's technically canon to some degree, right? Because the Tolkien estate did okay this to some degree.
Yep.
So it is an interesting question about whether or not it's canon or fan fiction. We'll have to see what happens and how the fans decide, because I think the fans have decided that the Jackson trilogy, at least the original trilogy, is canon. And not only that, I think it is the canon. Like, it almost has surpassed the books for its impact on the culture, I think. So that's a hard thing to live up to. You don't have to get quite there, but you at least have to make people take notice, and that's what this show needs to do. So we're gonna have to see what they do when they actually release the show. But as for right now, yeah, there's a risk it's fan fiction, and we're gonna hate it or be bored. I don't even know what's worse. I think hating it's worse maybe, but boredom is also pretty bad. So yeah, we'll have to see.
I regret to announce this is the end. I bid you all a very fond farewell.